Okay, I am back trying again and see what happens this time. Hello. Okay. Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello.
Hello. We finally figured it out. It's a great day to be alive. Of course, we're here streaming. I pray that all of you that were on are coming back on again. We're on with Vayne Thomas, a good friend of mine. I'm happy to have you on tonight.
I'm
And
so grateful to be on. Am I turned sideways? Am I the right way?
you are sideways.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you better now. There you are. There you are. There you are. Very, very good. So I believe that I believe I need to tag in. Uh, I have too many Facebook pages. I think that's what's going on. But but we're on now, and I'm just excited about you being with us tonight in this Men About Faith Action. We're just coming back on. Have been off for a minute, but certainly we're glad to have you on to share as being a brother beloved and the author of
Yes.
to Man,
Yes.
which is a powerful book, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. Just being men about faith and atonement, and what atonement is, just being at one with themselves, so that we can be better fathers, better husbands, better men. Just share with us your ideas and concepts on that, my friend.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me this afternoon. Today has been a wonderful day, a progressive day. Um, let's see, men about faith and atonement. Well, years ago, my wife and I were driving through a neighborhood, and as we were driving through the neighborhood, she brought to my memory a conference that we had gone to where a prophet had spoken to her life and told her about everything that she was going to become and all of the success that she was going to have. And I noticed that at that time, the prophet didn't say anything about me, but I had to have my own prophetic moment. As
Yes.
a matter of fact, the prophet Shakespeare spoke to me and said, "To thy own self be true." And
Yes.
at that very moment, I had to be honest with myself and speak to myself about some issues that I was failing to deal with and failing to recognize. The truth about my life was I was in a marriage, but I didn't know how to be in a loving, healing, successful marriage because I did not have great examples growing up of marriage, relationships, and emotional stability. I grew up in a home where my mother was a single parent, and because she was a single parent, I think people saw her as gullible. And so the first marriage that I saw my mother in was indeed and in fact a abusive relationship, a physically abusive, mentally abusive, verbally abusive relationship. And this was the example in which I had about life, about marriage, about relationships. I'd always told myself that I would never hit my wife or put my hands on my wife, but now as I come to understand, abuse is abuse, whether you do it physically, whether you do it emotionally, whether you do it verbally. Abuse is abuse. At that very moment, I had to recognize that if I didn't make a change, then the person in which I loved and wanted to be in my life was not going to be there very long. I had to recognize that I had to make a change from monster to man.
Yes.
And it was at that moment that I made a decision to start making the necessary changes and the necessary development that I needed to make in order to keep my marriage, and most of all, in order to build a relationship with me. Because throughout all I had learned and throughout all I had become through different personalities and people in my life, I missed out on knowing me.
Yes.
And so this was an opportunity for me to become at one with myself.
Okay, for those of you who are watching, I'm in two places. For those of you who are watching on the A. James Collins stream on Facebook. I want you to go to AJ Collins, and when you go there, you'll be able to, those who are on the A. James Collins, you're able to hear but not see Brother Vayne, and you need to see him, because just by looking at him, you're gonna be transformed just by seeing the brother's expression. But certainly flip over there and you can join in with us there. Thank you, Teresa, for being on. David Johnson, good to see you on this side. And I'm gonna ask Earl Wright and Tom Pringle, who's on the A. James Collins side. Just flip on over to AJ Collins and you can join in with us there. If not, just listen in. All right, go right ahead, Vayne.
So it was at this moment that I had to recognize that I needed to change. And even the last time you see me, Pastor Collins, Bishop Collins, I'm a slimmer person.
I noticed.
Because I'm no longer hiding. I'm no longer hiding from myself. I actually know myself. I told my father the other day, I said, at this point in my life, I'm happy about me because I actually know me. So some steps that I needed to take was, first of all, I had to be honest with myself. As I said, and I used it figuratively and funny, the prophet Shakespeare said, "To thy own self be true."
Yes.
What was the reason that I had gotten married? Well, for one, I had gotten married because I knew that I was going to become successful and all of this stuff, and I didn't want nobody coming after me after I had reached success. That was the first thing. I'm really honest. And then another reason was I thought that me getting married would heal me from abandonment. Just the action of getting married would heal me from abandonment. Well, how were you abandoned? Well, my parents were not married. They didn't get a chance to get married. And my mother went through a long time of bereavement after her and my father had broken up. And my mother was working and trying to keep food on the table and being a young, independent black woman and knowing all she could, doing all she could to survive this horrific breakup. And in the meantime, she left me with a capable woman, which her name was Mama Pat. She was my godmother. But Mama Pat was in an abusive relationship herself. And so here I am as a child getting placed in a situation or getting placed in an environment where all of these grown-ups have their own individual traumatic dynamics going on. So for one, my father wasn't there. For two, I did not have the real connection with my mother because she had to work, and then she put me with someone that was capable of taking care of me. And Mama Pat was doing all she could, but she couldn't do the best of her ability because she was in an abusive relationship. So all of these dynamics of abandonment was hitting me at one time. And I didn't even know how much it affected me until I began to write the book From Monster to Man, and I began to talk about the chapter Healing from Abandonment. And as I began to talk about the story of Mama Pat leaving and going out of town and telling me one day, "Baby, I'll be back," and kissing me on my forehead, and a few months later, us going over to Jack in the Box, and that was when they at first came out with the secret sauce. And I put the secret sauce on my little burger, my double bacon cheeseburger, got back to the house, and Mama Pat called. Mama Pat said, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" I said, sitting next to Papa Willie, which was her husband. I looked around, and it seemed like out of nowhere, boxes appeared around the walls. I then recognized that Mama Pat was not coming back. And so I didn't know that this level of abandonment was there until I began to write the chapter, Healing from Abandonment, chapter number 2. And I recognized that abandonment was there. I could not be real with myself on all the levels I needed to be real on because I didn't know that all those levels exist. And so I believe that in us healing and growing through, I never like to say go through anymore. I like to say growing through. As we grow through, we need to really go back into our lives, into our past, and into our history, and go and take ourselves on a journey of saying, when was the first traumatic experience I experienced?
Yes.
When was the first heartache? When was the first time I saw pain? When was the first time I saw abuse? When was the first time I saw all of these things? And then this really helps us see not only what has happened in our lives, but which part of that we've taken and called our own selves. Because
Wow.
we are bits and pieces of people and places and things that have happened in our lives. And it's not until we can go back over our lives and dissect all of those things that we find the real us.
Man, that's real. That's really, really powerful what you're sharing, and I'm really thankful that you're being transparent as you tell us this story, because indeed, people are dealing with abandonment. People are not really being honest with who they are or how they became who they are, and especially when you deal with situations of abandonment and things. One of the things that we pointed out on this in this group several times is that the biggest problem with many Americans is the absence of fathers, and that fatherhood
Wow. Yeah.
is a pandemic, not only among African Americans, but for all ethnicities, all nationalities, and a number of people, teenage pregnancies, men that are in prison, failures in school, all they have to do with the lack of fatherhood. So that's very, very strong that you would talk about that, and how important it is for us to, first of all, recognize who we are and be honest with ourselves before we can become exactly what God would want us to be.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now,
I mean, you know,
go ahead. What were you saying?
Go ahead.
Now, one of the things that in your writing of the book, Monster to Men, and I do want you to make mention to us and someone can post on here how a person can get a copy of that book, how they can actually get it, read it, and have their lives transformed through the lessons that's there.
Well, the way that people can make themselves available to the book, make the information and the journey that's in the book available to them is www.VayneThomas.com. Sister Teresa, if you would put that up for me, or even Brother David, if you would put that up for me, www.VayneThomas.com. That's, you can actually go to the website and you can learn about me as a coach, how I help. I'm an intimacy coach, so I help relationships and also help individuals get back in tune and atone with themselves. Right now, it looks like I'm going to have to get my son a little atonement, but no, I'm just joking.
Nothing like children, man. They're a blessing. They're a blessing, and they always a part of what we're doing, whether we want them to be or whether they're enjoying it.
I know. Isn't that something? Which is a wonderful thing. I enjoy that. I'm excited about that.
Now
but yes,
also, go ahead.
No, I'm listening.
Now,
so
also,
www.VayneThomas.com.
VayneThomas.com. Now, of course, we want to invite everybody that's on also to go to our website, www.yourlifeanew.com. You go there and you get an opportunity to share many things. And one of the things that you're talking about on your side is one of the things that we experienced, and the fact that my wife went through 12 years of dealing with lupus. 8 years ago, she had a heart transplant. And one of the things that we never really addressed was that there may have been, and we found out it was, emotional things that happened in her life that caused her to be open to those things happening to her physically. So a part of the new part also is to do something psychologically and spiritually to be totally brought back to the place where you originally made, where everything is in divine order. But many times people don't understand what's going on psychologically, whether it be emotional, and I'm glad you said abuse is more than just physical abuse, but emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and many times men who do not know who they are don't know that they're actually causing those type of emotional things to happen in their relationships.
Yes, that's so true. And so when we look at all of these levels of abuse, then we have to look at the levels of pleasure, because the levels of pleasure let us know which levels we can be abused on. So there are 4 levels of pleasure. There's a emotional level, there's a sensual level, there's a spiritual level, and then I know that this is a taboo word, but then there's a sexual level. And so, and I know that even in the transition and the growing that you and your wife were experiencing, you may have experienced where her body shut down,
Yes.
where her emotional system shut down, where her sensuality has to deal with senses. So her touch, her smell, her taste, she didn't want to be touched. She didn't want to, you know, there were just certain things that would shut down. And so this is what I dealt with even in the book. And a lot of things we deal with on a personal level, we don't want to make it private because we think that we're the only ones dealing with it. And most times it is embarrassing to tell someone, well, I'm having emotional issues. I'm having sensual issues. I'm having sexual issues. And I keep doing that because that's a taboo word. It's kind of like, you know, when I say sexual, if I mention the word sexual, it's kind of like everybody get ready for offering. You know, everybody get quiet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because even though everyone is in partaking in it, it's a dangerous word because there is a lot of trauma there. And the fact that we are unwilling to talk about these particular areas give us a note that there is trauma, there is pain. And so moving into atonement says that we move from blockages to bliss.
Yes.
Now, how do I move from blockages to bliss? The way I move from blockages to bliss is, first of all, I have to understand me and understand my body. In the book, I talk about 5 dimensions in which blockages can come. They come in 5 areas of the body, really 7, but the top and the bottom chakra or energy center are caps, which is where we keep energy cycling throughout the body. And so I talk about that, and many people don't recognize that even at the end of our pores are receptors. They're called nadis, and these receptors or nadis, they communicate with the different energy centers, and if it's something positive, it helps them turn and blossom, and if it's something negative, it actually shuts them down. And so in our time of pain, in our time of sickness, in our time of distress, these areas can either be open or these areas can be shut down. And many times through life, through unhealthy practices, unhealthy vocabulary, word curses, through unhealthy spiritual practice, mental practices, we got a lot of shut down stuff going. There's a lot of junk in our trunks. And so in order to really become atoned, we have to be willing to sit down with someone that knows about these different spiritual modalities and these different energy centers, and we have to be able to open it up. You know, I even talk about unfaithfulness in the relationship.
Yes.
Because you deal with that. See, when we're not atoned, or when we don't have a one with ourselves, then we will look for that oneness through someone else.
Yes.
We'll look for it, especially in relationships. And this is in any relationship, because relationships are all about service, right? And so if I'm in a relationship and I don't feel like my friend, my husband, my wife are giving me the attention that I need or meeting a need, then I'll go out and find the need. And so that's where unfaithfulness comes from. That's where infidelity comes from. It comes from a need being unmet, but me not being able to healthfully express what need I need to be met.
Many men, that's one of the things that many men don't know how to deal with in that area.
Right.
And unfortunately, as we're dealing with men about faith and action of men in atonement, one of the unfortunate things is that many of us have bad mentorship, and we listen to brothers who have not discovered themselves, who are giving younger men advice that is not them in the place where they need to be. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, I think is very, very good and necessary that we go back to, that you were talking about how there's light in every person, and how there is a system of light in every person, from the top of their head to the sole of their feet, in between the chakras. Some of the things that we do not cover for whatever reason, many religious people believe that we should stay away from that. But these are things that are actually scientifically and biologically a part of what's going on in every person, and they need to really address it.
And they're biblical too, really, and they're biblical too. And when I really began to step into spirituality, parts of us back up. Many of us can't think clearly. Why? Because there's a blockage there. Many of us
Yeah.
can't speak our truth clearly. We're afraid to talk about what we really want to talk about. Why? Because there's a blockage there. Many of us can't feel clearly. Our
Yeah.
heart is not open. Why? Because
Yeah.
there's a block there. Many of us have ailments in our bones and in our different systems. Why? Because there's a block there. Many of us don't have motivation or passion to do anything in life because there's a block there. And so when we can move into atonement and move from monster to man, and this isn't just for men, this is for women. This is talking about moving from monster to man as mankind, recognizing the pain and the hurts and the dysfunctions in which we have and pulling ourselves to the carpet for the betterment of ourselves and saying, hey, let me grow here.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
so it's important that we learn the science, learn the system, and even learn what cycles we've been stuck in.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And that's one of the things that are very, very important for all men. And I'm glad you said that it's not just for male men, but it's for both
Right.
males and females. And many times when people
Right.
hear men, automatically they think, they think, oh my, that must be talking about men, the male man. But this is
Right.
for
Right.
men, male and female. And
Right.
so many things are being missed because these things are not being addressed in a person's life, and they're very, very, very important.
Right. Yeah. Well, just like I made a mention of a couple in my book that was on a national television show, and the woman brought up the fact that her husband had, the man that she was with had cheated. They had been together for 10 years, and they had 2 children. And the man said that I didn't have enough time with her. She started school. She was a mother. She was working, and he went neglected. Now, is this a reason to cheat? No, it's not a reason to cheat, but it's a reason to recognize a need that was not met. A need that wasn't met for her is, for one, she needed to have stability and know where her relationship was going. She needed to have intimacy, stop sleeping in the same room. But he needed to have an open ear to hear that he needed time. He needed affection. He needed embrace as a man.
Yeah.
What I did, but because we never learned how to talk about that healthy, this is what the host said. The host took her side. Do you see what you got? And well, the proper way to do it and to have proper atonement is to sit both problems down and say, now, what is the need?
Yes.
Many of us, men and women, have needs that are unmet.
Yeah.
And atonement, or moving from monster to man, says that I'm going to look into my problems and look for my needs that need to be met. Because once I can find the need, then I can stop the bleeding.
Mama, I like that. Say it again. Once you find the need, you can stop.
Once I can find the need, I can stop the bleeding.
Yes.
Many of us are bleeding internally because we're holding emotions and holding pain and holding past in us, but we're also bleeding on other people.
Mama.
Well, you ought to just know. You ought to know. Nobody's going to know anything that I don't express. Yes. And as you said earlier, and I like that because I put that in the book as well, that we have had in our times past bad examples, bad mentors.
Yes.
You know what people told me when I was with my wife and we were having difficult problems? Man, you ought to go get you another one. Well, how does that help me with this one? Yes. Because the same man or the same problem that I have in this relationship, I'm going to have that one in the next relationship.
Yes.
So if I don't heal, if I don't, you know what I'm saying? If I don't get myself together, then what is 2 going to make me? The 2 isn't going to do anything.
Right, right.
But time me up.
And that's so important. And one of the things that's mentioned here is that communication is a must. And
It
not
is a
only,
must.
and not only is communication a must, but how to communicate. I don't think that is ever a problem as far as
Yes.
communication, but it's
Effective communication.
how to communicate. Because many times
Yes.
people speak out of their anger, they
Yes.
speak out of their frustration, they speak out of the place of being lost themselves and not knowing how to really address what they're going through. So they cannot, if you cannot find
Yes.
yourself, that's why we're talking about atonement. If you cannot find yourself and be at one with yourself, there's no way that you can actually express truthfully and honestly what you're going through without injuring someone else in your communication process.
Right. Right. And communication is key. And I want to give a resource for communication. And I put this resource also in the book, but a book entitled Nonviolent Communication.
Yeah.
Nonviolent Communication. His name is Michael Schuckenberg, I believe. Nonviolent Communication. Everybody on here should make that a part of your library. And instead of just having it on your book to say, I have it on my shelf, actually become a student of that book. This
Yeah.
really helped my wife and I learn how to communicate effectively because they use 4 points. Number 1 is observation, what I'm observing. Number
Yes.
2 is how I feel. Number 3 is what I need. And number 4, ask for a request. So number 1 is observation. Number 2 is how I feel. Number 3 is address my need, what I need. And number 4, ask for an arrangement, ask for an agreement. Case in point, one day my wife was texting, and I looked over. You know how we look over out of our insecurities, which I don't do no more, but this is a great example. I looked over, and I saw it was a dude. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, snap, man. This beautiful woman, and I'm tripping, in our relationship. So she must be finding him somebody else. My son copies everything I say. So y'all just know you just get the refeed. And so I look over at the text, and she still texting. So what I did is that I first observed. I said, babe, I'm noticing that you're texting this person quite a bit. My feeling was next. I'm feeling, and this was a truthful feeling, and it's okay to be truthful. I said, I'm feeling a bit jealous and insecure.
Yes.
What I need. My next step was what I need. Babe, I need to know that we're going to be faithful and committed in this relationship.
Yeah.
Can I get an agreement from you that we're going to be faithful, that we're going to be honest, that we're only going to be sexually and spiritually and emotionally and physically engaged with one another?
Yeah.
She said, yes, but why did you ask the question? I said, because I saw you doing all that texting over there. She said, well, baby, this was an opportunity that I was taking advantage of, and this person can only text, and there was some money involved. So, well, keep on texting then, But the thing of it is that I had to be honest with what I needed and what I was feeling. And so now we practice this all the time. My wife and I have not had an argument in 4 to 5 years. And she testified to that a few months ago. I was like, babe, how long has it been? I was just asking, how long has it been since we had an argument? She said 4 years. Why? Because when we can properly communicate, which is observe, state exactly what I feel. It's okay to say I'm angry. It's okay to say I'm jealous. It's okay to say I feel imprisoned. It's okay to say I'm feeling unheard or unrecognized. It's okay to say at this time I feel I don't have control. But many of us are afraid to announce what we really feel. Like, say, for instance, I asked someone on the other day, I said, okay, I understand you feel this way. What are you needing? Are you needing control? Oh, no, I don't need control. No, you do need control because you don't have control, you're feeling out of your element. It's okay to say, I need control. I need this. I need that. I need to feel this. I need to feel that. Because when you're doing that, that is the very thing that is the blockage. So when I can express it, then what happens is that it no longer has a hold on me. And when I express that I feel jealous, I don't feel jealous no more. There's not a jealous bone in my body. I don't feel jealous about a man. I don't feel jealous about a woman. I don't feel jealous because I expressed it. I don't feel angry because I expressed it. Just on the other day, I was talking to our graphics designer, and I was telling her, I said, I want to express something. I said, I'm feeling irritated and aggravated, and most times I like to feel motivated. I said, but I gave you this assignment on this day, and I didn't, and we hadn't communicated it this long, and I hadn't had it. She said, I feel aggravated too. I said, good. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, what I need from you by 3 o'clock is this. Can we do that? So I observed what the situation. I told her my feeling, my emotion. I asked her for a need, and she was able to get it done. So it's effective communication, nonviolent communication. That information is also in my book, but you want to go and get that book as a resource as well.
Most definitely, and I want to say again that you want to get that book. But also, Vayne, there might be people who are on. I'm watching the comments coming on. There might be some people on that say, "Listen, I really need to be coached. I need some help." We do reality and relationships. Again, the person can go to yourlifeanew.com and get in touch with us. But tell people where they can get in touch with you, because some of the things that you're sharing right now is resonating with people, and they recognize I really need to talk to somebody who can help me navigate through these things that I'm going through, because I really want to be the person that I'm supposed to be, the person, my divine self. I'm
Yes.
interested in being my divine self than my human self, and learn how to bring my humanity in alignment with my divinity.
Yes, yes, and it's very possible, and it's very possible, and I do that through 6 points. The first point is spiritually, the next point is economically, the next point is emotionally, and then socially, and then relationally, and then also romantically. So I'm a coach on all of those levels, but the way that you can get in contact with me is www.vaynthomas.com, or I'm all over social media. You can inbox me, shoot me an inbox. Our team will more than happily send you over a questionnaire. I always do a questionnaire because I have to know what trauma, what pain, what relationship status, what economic status. I have to know where you are and where you're going.
Yeah.
Now, I will not waste your time. Something I will not do, and I would not want for you to waste my time or for you to waste your time. When you inbox me, when you call me, when you send a request on Facebook, on our website, this is for serious people only, because I'm going to send this information to you. I need it back very urgently, because your life is in a 911 state. And
Yes.
And I know what it feels like to be in a 911 state. And what most people do, www.vaynthomas.com. Vayne Thomas on Facebook, Vayne Thomas on social media. But what most people do, Bishop Collins, is that we say, oh, I want your information. And then they don't get the information because they go back and listen to people that are in the same situation they're in and think that advice is going to help.
Now that right there, can you just point out to us how dangerous it is to continue to communicate with people who are entrapped themselves, who are in themselves, and who are going to continue to perpetuate the same idealistic or concepts that cause you to be in the situation that you're in right now? Is there a real need for us to let go and let God, to cut off some people, to make some changes as far as our life is concerned, so that we can become the person that we want to be? Matter of fact, let me ask this. When you're talking about from monster to men, do you still drag that monster down once you find out how to be a man, or do you actually let Frankenstein go?
No. Yeah, you gotta let Frankenstein go. And you know, at some point in your life, you need a woosah and a break from all of the previous influences that have influenced us to getting to this devastating point.
Yes.
So that means mother, that means father, that means sister, that means brother. It does not necessarily mean that I have to cut you completely away from my life. But if I know that I've never got a good example from you financially, we can talk about everything else, but we won't talk about finances.
Hello.
If I know that I have not gotten a good example from you when it comes to intimate relationships, I can get advice from you from every other area in my life about the children, about getting the oil changed, about all of these other areas. But when it comes to relationships, we can't talk about that, because I do not see a wonderful blueprint that I want my life to follow. And if I don't see a blueprint that I want my life to follow, then I don't need to be looking at the person living in the house.
Hello.
All of us live in the house that we have the blueprint on.
Yeah.
And if I refuse to live in the house that looks like your house, I need to be looking for another blueprint. So all of us have people in us that we have become. We've become our mother, we become our father, we become our boss, we become all of these different people. And if these persons have led me into an unhealthy space in my life through their example, then those are the people in which I need to say, I love you, but I need to let you exit this part, because this is where I need the growth. Yes, we gotta let the monsters go. We gotta put them on pause. And some people, let me tell you something.
Yes,
and some people are so, they get disturbed when they cannot have that emotional attachment to you anymore, because the truth of the matter is they needed you more than you needed them. And so it angers them not to be able to give you advice. Well, I was just trying to help. Well, your help is very needed for someone else that wants to stay in this house. But as for me, I want to move to another location. So yes, it's important to let go.
As for me in my house,
we got to serve the Lord.
Yes,
got to serve the Lord.
Now, one of the things, as you're talking about this, one of the things that keep popping up in my mind is soul ties. There's a lot been discussed about soul ties. Unfortunately, people have just dealt with it when it comes to sexuality. But in the things that you're talking about right now, and the things that you're talking about right now, is that not an example of soul ties where people feel like they cannot get along without hearing of somebody, talking to somebody, giving somebody advice, doing all this? Would that not also be considered as soul ties?
That is a soul tie, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. A book that I've read and that I've studied for the longest time, and even studying Eastern philosophy and Eastern thoughts, Eastern disciplines, we recognize that soul ties are very real, but soul ties do not just stop, as you said, with sexual partners. Really, with sexual partners, many people think that that's a soul tie, but that's called an attachment. That's called an attachment. That is not a soul tie. Our soul ties are indeed and in fact our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our co-workers, people that we come in contact with in life, and it looks like and seems like and is designed by God. Soul ties were not made in the earth. Soul ties were made in the etheric world, or in the spiritual world, in the astral world, in the heavens. They were all souls were created at the same time. All souls of mine, said the Lord. And so all of these souls had an assignment. So these souls were tied together according to time, space, and matter. The time that you were supposed to get here, the spaces that you were supposed to occupy, and the matter that you were supposed to shift or change. And so your soul tie was actually your mother, your father. That was a soul tie. That was individuals that your soul were tied to. Your sisters, your brothers, individuals that your souls were tied to. People that you meet and you say, seems like I've been knowing you all my life. Soul tie. Soul. That was a soul tie. All of this is soul tie. My sons, my children are soul ties. They were tied to me. They were souls that were tied to me before I got here. And yes, those are soul ties. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get away from soul ties. And the reason why it's difficult is because they were connected to us from a spiritual level. And so we've got to break them from a spiritual dimension.
Yes.
We've got to break them from a spiritual dimension.
Well, listen, man, I'm so excited and delighted that you're on with us. And we talked earlier about partnering together, doing some other things in the future. And I'm glad you're part of this Men About Faith in Action. Only made men can be a part of the MAFIA, obviously. And you have to move from monster to manhood, of being a man to be a made man. One of the things I wanted to share right now, well, when we first met several years ago, you were here in the area. You left and you were in Houston places. and now you're back in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Can you tell us what are you doing in this area now?
Yes. Yes, I am back in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm in Irving, Texas, pastoring a church here in Irving, Texas, and it seemed like it took so long for me to get here because of soul ties. You know, I listened to a lot of people that was connected to me and told me don't do it and this and that, and I listened to a lot of my past. But as we move from monster to man, and as monster to man journey is a healing journey. So it's healing from those thoughts and those word curses and those limitations and moving into your best self. I am here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Irving, Texas, at my church, at our church, which is called Greater Dimensions Church, Greater Dimensions Interdenominational Church. And we are a thriving church. We're a big church because we have big hearts. And we believe that at our church, we learn, we love, and we lead. And we are located in Irving, Texas, 2700 Finley Road, Irving, Texas, 75062. We'll be having a conference this week, Healing for Your Next. And we recognize that many of us have been traumatized in our past, paralyzed in our present, but we're going to be mesmerized for our future. So
Yes.
2700 Finley Road, Irving, Texas, 75062 is where you can find me every Sunday at 6:30. And yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, very good. And we're about to close out for this evening. I'm glad that you're with us again. And I apologize to those who were on the conference call because we kind of bumped off there. We're just learning. Thank you, Vayne, for being patient with me as I'm trying to get this going. And now that we got it connected, the next time we come on, we'll be able to do both of them at the same time. Those of you who are on, thank you. Those some people over here on one page just looking at me. And hopefully I'm looking halfway handsome enough for them to look at me. And
Let's hope.
We're able to be on together. But those who are on the A. James Collins Facebook page, I want you to know, just a few minutes, I'm going to send this live over on that side too so you can see it. And we look forward to coming back together possibly on next week. We'll talk about when we will and just post it out to everybody so they'll be able to see what's going on. Man, you've been a tremendous blessing to us tonight. You've helped us
absolutely
greatly.
Awesome. Yes.
Yes, sir. And there's so many subjects that we did not have opportunity to discuss tonight. And I just enjoy it because I appreciate your consciousness and where you are. I'm excited about the journey. I'm excited about the fact that we had opportunity to share in the journey together, and that to see me grow up and you grow up at the same time is a tremendous blessing, man. And so we're so glad to be here together.
Always, always. I'm super excited to be on tonight. I've already got inboxes coming in of people saying, I want that questionnaire. So thank you so much for this opportunity, for this time, and being able to talk. And hey, we'll talk next time.
All right now. And for everybody else, let's stay connected, watch God work. It's a great day to be alive. And most of all, enjoy life.
We see the best